Hey there, students. It's Mr. Eaton, and today we're going to take a look at topic 5, block 4 and 5, in continuing on with adding and subtracting integers. And today we're looking at using the number line to find differences. So we're going to be subtracting because that's what finding a difference means. We are subtracting. Now, of course, you could look at this and you go, oh, all right, well, this is 6 minus 4. I already know what 6 minus 4 is. It's 2. All right, yeah, and you're absolutely right. Well, let's look at that on a number line. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start from 0 because in order to get to our starting value of 6, we've got to start at 0 and get there. So we're going to go from 0 and we're going to go to 6. All right. Now, from 6, we're going to subtract 4. And that's pretty easy to do, right? Subtracting 4 means we're moving left on the number line. 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at there. That's subtracting 4. And that puts us at 2. And there you go. The answer is 2. Beautiful, right? No problem. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one, right? It's pretty similar. Again, we're starting at 6. So again, I'm going to start from 0. And I'm going to go from 0 to 6. And then from 6, I'm going to subtract 9. Now, because I'm subtracting a positive number, I'm still going to move left on the number line 9 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Minus 9. 6 minus 9 means that puts me at negative 3 because I'm moving left on the number line when I subtract a positive number. So the thing you need to realize out of this is that when you subtract a positive, that means you are going to move left on the number line. Okay, and that works for both of these. Subtracting a positive, moving left. Subtracting a positive, moving left. All right, well, then that takes us to the third one, letter C here. And if we're going to, if we are subtracting a positive and move left, what happens when we subtract a negative like what we have here? See, you can see right here, we are no longer subtracting a positive number, we're subtracting a negative number. Well, if you subtract a positive, you move left, it would stand to reason that when you subtract a negative, you're going to have to move the opposite direction. So that means you're going to be moving right when you subtract that negative. But first things first, let's get our starting value, which is negative 3. So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to jump to negative 3, right? Negative 3. And then I'm going to subtract that negative 5. Remember, subtracting a negative, I got to move to the right on my number line because it's the opposite of subtracting a positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Minus negative 5. And that puts me where? At 2. All right. So remember, now, of course, like I said before, when you're subtracting a positive, you move left. Let's write this down. Subtract a negative. Pardon the handwriting. Means you're going to move right on the number line. Which is interesting because the other thing that you do when you move right on the number line is when you're adding a positive. So that's interesting, but we'll get to that later. So the thing I want you to see here is that, like in letter D here, it says subtracting a number is the same thing as adding its what? Well, let's look at a couple of examples here really quick. Subtracting a number is the same thing as adding its what? Well, remember, so when we subtract a positive, so let's say we have 7 minus 4, that's the same thing as 7 plus negative 4. You're moving the same way on the number line. When you add a negative, you're moving to the right, to the left. When you subtract, you're moving to the left. Now these both equal 3. But they're the same. But what did we do? Oops, hold on a second. There you go. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. What did I just, bad things happen when I start moving things around. Okay, there we are. Whew. Sorry about that. Now, the other thing is, let's look at what happens when we subtract a negative number. Let's see, 5 minus -2. Remember when that was the same thing as, we were moving to the right on a number line. When you subtract a negative, you're moving to the right. What else do you do when you're moving to the right? Well, you're adding a positive. And that's going to give us 7. So subtracting 4 is the same thing as adding -4. Subtracting -2 is the same thing as adding 2. So first thing you should notice is that we change subtraction to addition, just like that. And the same thing we did here, we changed subtraction to addition, just like that. But are we adding that same number? Did we keep the 4? No, that 4 became -4, which is its opposite. Did we keep this as -2? No, that -2 becomes 2. It becomes its opposite. So subtracting a number is the same thing as adding its opposite. Now, opposite, it's like a $5 math word. We should use the $50 math word. And the other word for opposite is its additive inverse. Additive inverse. It means the same thing as the opposite, just a fancier math word. Additive inverse. They mean the same thing. They're synonyms. Okay? All right. Well, let's keep going on down here. What do the values in the number sentence tell you about the distances on the number line? You know what? You're going to love me for this. We're not going to worry about this one right now. So let's take a look here at number 3. We will take a look at this one, number 3. Another way to think about differences, remember that's subtracting, is to consider fact families. Fill in the blanks to find the missing number in each fact family. Okay, so we're trying to find the missing number here, the question mark. What is 5 minus 3? What plus 3 equals 5? 3 plus what equals 5? And 5 minus what equals 3? What is the question mark in these 4 number sentences in this fact family? What's that question mark represent? You probably guessed already that it's 2. Absolutely. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 2 is 5. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So that works. But what about when we take a look at this one over here, this box of fact families? -3 minus 5 equals what? What plus 5 equals -3? 5 plus what equals -3? And -3 minus what equals -5? Well, this is all very interesting. But let's take a look at this very first one here. -3 minus 5 equals what? Now remember, what subtraction is. Subtracting a number is the same thing as adding its opposite. So let's take this one over here. We're going to leave that first number exactly the same. Never change the first number. Subtracting is adding the opposite. So we're going to add now. But what is the opposite of 5? -3 minus 5. What's the opposite of 5? -5. And what is -3 plus -5? I've got 3 negatives plus 5 negatives. I've got a total of 8 negatives, -8. Does that work for the rest of these? Is -8 plus 5 -3? It sure is. I've got 8 negatives and 5 positives. When I cancel out all those 0 pairs, I'll end up with -3. 5 plus -3, well, this is just the same one, just reversing the addition. So yes. And -3 minus -8, does that equal 5? Well, let's see. -3 minus -8, does that equal 5? Remember, subtracting is adding the opposite. Keep that first number exactly the same. I'm adding, what's the opposite of negative 8? 8. And negative 3 plus 8 is 5. So yeah, that's right. 5. 5. Perfect. So in this case, the fact family, the question mark is negative 8. Okay. Well, let's take a look at number 4 then, as we're moving along. Remember, you can pause this video and go back and rewatch anything you need to if you're not understanding. What is 10 plus negative 4? Okay, 10 plus negative 4. If we're on the number line, and let's say that we are over here at 10. 10 plus negative 4. Well, that means we're going to move down the number line 1, 2, 3, 4 places. 9, 8, 7, 6. Zoop. Adding negative 4. That's going to be 6. And negative 4 plus 10. Well, if we're on a number line, again, if we're on a number line and we're at negative 4, we're going to add 10. That means we're going to move to the right 10 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, let's see. Negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. And that's adding 10. Well, look at that. 10 plus negative 4 is 6. Negative 4 plus 10 is 6. You're going to get the same answer for each of those. Well, first of all, because of the commutative property of addition. Commutative property of addition. That's why that works like that. Because it doesn't matter what order the numbers are in, as long as you're adding, you're going to get the same answer. Does it work the same thing for subtraction? Well, let's find out. 10 minus 4. Well, okay. Again, we'll start it. Here's 10. 10 minus 4. So I'm going to move to the right, or sorry, to the left. I'm going to move to the left 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. 9, 8, 7, 6. So 10 minus 4 is 6. How about 4 minus 10? Is that going to be the same? Well, we can use the same number line. Here's 5, here's 4. Let's go down the number line 10 spots, because here's 4. I'm going to subtract 10. When I'm subtracting a positive number, I'm going to move left on the number line. 4. Let's see. Moving to the left, 10. I better do this on lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whoops. Around a number line. There we go. Now, counting down. 3, 2, 1, 0. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. Oh my. I don't get the same answer, do I? And the reason is because when we're finding the difference, we're subtracting, and subtraction is not commutative. There is no commutative property for subtraction. There is no commutative property. You cannot reverse the order of the numbers that are being subtracted and expect to get the same answer. That's an important thing to remember. Make sure you're writing all this down. If you're not, you're wasting your time. We don't want to waste our time. Okay, well, that brings us down to number 7. It says to represent each expression in a different way and then answer the problem. Well, like I said before, subtraction is not commutative, so I can't just reverse the order of 6 minus 11. But what I can do is rewrite it as adding the opposite, right? So I'll keep that first number the same, 6. Subtraction becomes addition. And what's the opposite of 11? Well, it's negative 11. And 6 plus negative 11 is negative 5. Because you're starting at 6 on the number line, moving to the left 11 spaces, and you will end up at negative 5. How about negative 5 plus 3? Well, that's addition, so we can just reverse the order. I can just go, well, that's 3 plus negative 5. No worries. Reverse the order. Now what's 3 plus negative 5? Well, let's see. 3, start at 3 on the number line. We can use this number line down here if we want to. Here's 3, and I'm going to go to the left, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's put me at negative 2. Okay. 11 minus 6. Well, is it addition? Can I just reverse the order? No, because subtraction is not commutative. I would have to rewrite this as an addition problem, remembering to add the opposite. So I've got 11 plus the opposite of 6 is negative 6. So what is 11 plus negative 6? Well, it's like saying that I'm on the number line. I'm at 11, and I'm going to add negative 6. That means I'm going to move to the left 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's 11. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. 5. And how about negative 3 plus 5? I can just reverse the order of that because it's commutative. This can be written as 5 plus negative 3. Notice that I always put parentheses around my negatives. 5 plus negative 3. Well, here I am at 5. I'm going to add negative 3. That means I'm going to move to the left 3 spots. 1, 2, 3. And that puts me at, let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2. There we are. 2. So 5 plus negative 3 is 2. All right. So we're just playing around with some subtraction of integers, positive, negative numbers. We are not going to worry about number 8. So I'm just going to block that out for you. 8, not A, not B, not C, not D, not E. We're just not going to worry about it today. And we're going to skip on down to number 9, which says, match each real-world context to an equation. Okay, well, let's see here. The long and short of it, folks, and let me give it away for you. On this particular one, this one goes with this one, and this one goes with that one, and that one goes with that one. They aren't even really mixed up. But let's take a look at these equations, first of all, and try to make sense of them. Remember subtraction, it's adding the opposite. So 20 minus negative 50 would be 20 plus, what's the opposite of negative 50? 70. Wait a minute, hold on a second here. Sorry about that. I wasn't thinking when I was talking. 50, there we go. Now, that's the opposite of negative 50. And what is 20 plus 50? That's 70. Now let's look at the real world context problem that goes with this. Brian starts a hike in a deep canyon at an elevation of negative 50 feet, and then hikes to an elevation of 20 feet. What is the distance that he hiked? Well, I'm going to go over here and draw a diagram because it would help to see that. So let's imagine here we've got sea level. There's water. Okay, just imagine that's a nice water. Then just from that water, let's say we've got a mountain, right? And then that mountain, there's a deep valley. Okay, now imagine that down here is the elevation. It's like Death Valley maybe, at negative 50 feet. That's 50 feet below sea level. Blue sea, okay? And then Brian hikes to an elevation of 20 feet. So again, here's that sea level mark. That means that's going to be 0. And he hikes from negative 50 in this deep canyon to an elevation of 20 above sea level. So then what is the distance that he hiked? Well, let's see here. He hiked from negative 50 to 0. How far is that? Well, that's 50. And then from 0 to 20, That's 20. So if you add 20 and 50, you're going to get the total of 70, which matches up with the equation that we have over here. Awesome. All right, now let's look at this next one. Negative 50 plus 20. There's no manipulation that has to go on here. It is, what is negative 50 plus 20? You got 50 negatives and 20 positives. When you cancel all the zero pairs out and everything, you're going to end up at negative 30. And let's look at the problem. Carla owed her sister $50, so she owed $50. And then paid $20. So that makes sense because the owing $50 would be like negative 50. And then she added $20 to that because she paid that money back. So then how much does she still owe? What is her financial situation right now? Well, she still owes 30 bucks. Which would look like negative 30. Okay. Well, let's look at this last one. A small town in Russia experienced a high temperature for the day of negative 20 degrees. It's pretty cold still. That night, the temperature fell to negative 50. So how many degrees did the temperature fall? Now, I like to draw pictures to help understand questions like this. I'm going to draw the thermometer as like a vertical number line. I'm going to put 0 degrees right here. Here's negative 10, negative 20. So that's where the temperature started, right? At negative 20. And then it fell to negative 50. So I better put, here's negative 30, negative 40, and negative 50. So the temperature fell from negative 20 down to negative 50. How far did the temperature fall? How many degrees? Well, here's 10, 20, 30 degrees. So it fell 30 degrees. So negative 30. Well, does that match up with our situation over here? Remember subtraction? Subtraction is adding the opposite. So negative 20 plus the opposite of negative 50 is 50. And negative 20 plus 50, 20 negatives, 50 positives. Well, that's going to equal 30 degrees. That's a 30-degree fall. So when we're talking about how many degrees, I guess we're still talking about distance, aren't we? So we don't really need that negative because it fell 30 degrees. Because it's already asking how many did it fall. It didn't fall negative 30, it fell 30 degrees. And that makes sense. Okay. That brings us to question number 10. There are 9 questions. The good news is we're going to do number 11, any of it. So this is the end of block 4 of topic 5. But that means we have to rewrite each of these as a subtraction problem. I'm sorry, rewrite each subtraction problem as an addition problem. So we have to transform each of these into an addition problem. So we'll get started. Letter A, negative 2 minus negative 8. Well, remember, we always keep the first number the same. Negative 2, subtraction changes to addition, and the opposite of negative 8 is 8. So negative 2 plus 8. You've got 2 negatives, 8 positives. Well, 8 minus 2 is 6, and I have more positives than I have negatives, and so my answer will be positive 6. Okay. Letter B, 4 minus 7. Well, remember, 4 stays the same. The first number always does. Subtraction changes to addition, and the opposite of 7 is negative 7. And 4 plus negative 7 is going to be negative 3 because, well, first of all, we've got 3, but it's going to be negative. Why? Because we have more negatives than we have positives, and that's why the answer will be negative. Okay, Now, a lot of you will look at letter C and be like, well, that's 0. -5 minus -5 is 0. No, it's not really. Remember, subtraction is adding the opposite. Work it out. Don't trust yourself yet. -5, I do this all the time. -5 stays the same, the first one. Subtraction, change to addition. The opposite of -5 is 5. So -5 plus 5 is 0. No, it's not. Yes, it is. It's 0. Wait a minute. What were you thinking, Mr. Eaton? I don't know what I was thinking. It's late. -5 plus the opposite of -5. Yeah, that's 0. Jeez. I must have been thinking of another question. Okay, well, letter D. Let's move on. 7 minus 3. Well, that's going to be 7 plus -3, because that's the opposite of 3. And we add 7 and -3, and we get 4. Why? Because I've got more positives than I have negatives. Okay, letter E. -5 minus -4. Well, remember that first question, the first number stays the same, -5, plus the opposite of -4 is +4. And our answer becomes -1. Why? Because I've got a negative and a positive, and I have more negatives than I have positives, so my answer will be negative. Letter F. -5 minus 4. So first number stays the same because the first number always does. Subtraction becomes addition. The opposite of 4 is -4. And -5 plus -4, you got 5 negatives and 4 more negatives, which gives us 9 negatives, -9. Beautiful. 3 more to go. -1 minus -8. First number always stays the same. Subtraction changes to addition. And -8, the opposite of that is 8. -1 plus 8, well, let's see. That's going to be 7. How come? Because I've got more positives than I have negatives. 10 minus 7, we already know the answer is going to be 3 because 10 minus 7 is 3. But why is that? Well, because 10 stays 10, subtraction becomes addition. The opposite of 7 is -7. And 10 plus -7 is 3 because I have more positives than I have negatives after I subtract 10 minus 7. And I get 3. But what about the very last one here? 7 subtract 10. Well, remember, 7 stays the same. Subtraction becomes addition. And 10, the opposite of 10 is -10. Adding the opposite. And 7 plus -10, well, that's -3 because now I have more negatives than I have positives. And 10 minus 7 is 3, -3. Okay, so doing pretty good.